All right, let's dive right in. For centuries, modern readers have opened the Bible and just hit a cosmic wall. We read about a solid dome in the sky, an earth sitting on pillars, waters above the heavens, and it all just feels completely alien to our scientific age. So how are we supposed to make sense of the Bible's ancient view of the universe? Well, that's what we're going to unpack.
And if you've ever felt that, you are definitely not alone. When scripture talks about the foundations of the earth or calls the sun and moon part of a heavenly host, there's this immediate disconnect. It feels like we're trying to jam a square peg into a round, spinning, galaxy-filled hole. And this slide just lays out the tension perfectly, doesn't it? On the one hand, you've got this ancient biblical model, a pretty tidy three-tiered structure, with heaven up, the underworld down, and us right in the middle. But on the other hand, there's our modern view, a universe with billions of galaxies stretching across an almost unimaginable expanse. They just seem totally incompatible. So when we're faced with this problem, people usually take one of two paths. But as we're about to see, both of these very common approaches kind of fall short of understanding what the biblical authors were actually trying to say. Okay, so the first path is to harmonize. This is where we try to argue that, the biblical writers somehow knew about modern science, that the firmament, for instance, was just a poetic way of talking about the atmosphere. The second path is to just discard it all. This approach basically treats the ancient cosmology as embarrassing baggage, mythology that we have to ignore to get to the real message. And here's the crucial point. Both of those paths completely miss what's going on. The biblical authors weren't writing a physics textbook. Their goal was never to describe the physical mechanics of the universe. Their purpose was theological. They were painting a very, very different kind of picture. And that leads us to a third, and I think much more helpful, way of understanding this ancient cosmos. It's not about seeing it as bad science. It's about seeing the universe as a theological map.
This really is the key question, isn't it? If we stop trying to read Genesis like it's an astronomy lesson, then what are we supposed to be reading it as? What was the real message behind all this imagery of pillars and firmaments and cosmic waters?
And here it is. This is the central idea. The biblical cosmology is best understood as a theological map. It's a map that shows us who's in charge, what the power structures are, and where everything fits inside God's divine government. It's revealing truths about spiritual reality, not physical reality.
Now, a really important concept here is something called divine accommodation. And the idea is pretty simple. For communication to actually work, it has to be understood. So God spoke to the ancient Israelites using concepts and a worldview that they were already familiar with. Trying to explain quantum physics to them would have been completely meaningless. He used their framework to communicate timeless truths.
But get this, it's even deeper than that. The ancient worldview wasn't just some neutral container for the message. That whole vision of an ordered, three-tiered cosmos was itself part of the message. It was this powerful way to show that the universe isn't some accident, but a structured kingdom set up by divine authority.
So, if this whole thing is a map, let's actually explore the territory. What does this cosmic kingdom really look like, and who are the key players on the stage? What's so interesting here is how this view populates the universe. This isn't a silent, empty void. No, it's a dynamic, bustling kingdom. God is the sovereign king. He has a heavenly council of spiritual beings who are basically his administration. Humanity has this really special role as his representatives, his image on earth. And crucially, there's a conflict, a rebellion against God's authority that really sets the stage for the entire biblical story.
And understanding this framework completely changes how we see the mission of Christ. It's not just about saving individual souls from sin. In this view, Christ's work is about defeating those rebellious spiritual powers and starting the grand project of restoring God's rightful reign over the entire cosmic kingdom, heaven and earth. So, the really big question for us today is, how does this ancient map apply to our modern lives? How can we actually inhabit this biblical worldview while fully accepting everything modern science has taught us about the physical universe? Well, the good news is we don't have to choose. Recovering this theological vision isn't about rejecting science. It's about seeing a deeper layer of reality that science isn't even designed to measure. It gives us a framework of meaning. So the first major takeaway is this. The universe isn't just an impersonal machine running on physical laws. It's a kingdom, and it's governed by a personal God.
This view suggests that behind all the observable mechanics of the cosmos, there is a sovereign will and a divine authority. Secondly, this map insists that reality is way more than what we can see and touch. The spiritual realm, populated by both faithful and rebellious beings, is not some leftover from an ancient, superstitious time. According to Scripture, it's a fundamental and active part of the cosmos we live in right now. And finally, this worldview gives humanity an incredible sense of purpose. We aren't just a biological accident on a random planet. Nope, we are created to be God's representatives, playing a crucial role in the great story of cosmic restoration. Our lives have real meaning inside this grand divine story.
So I'll leave you with this question to think about. How does it change things if we start to view the universe not primarily as a machine that we need to analyze, but as a kingdom that we're supposed to inhabit? A kingdom that has a king, a purpose, and a vital role for each and every one of us to play.